All right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. It's a State of the Nation where we talk about matters, politics, and everything in between. Send in your views at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. We'll sample them on all the subtopics that we're talking about. Let's now get into the issue of the hearing of petitions against 4 IEBC commissioners commencing. Petitioners have 2 days, beginning today, to convince MPs 4 commissioners are unfit to hold office. The hour of reckoning for 4 electoral commissioners is finally here. The petitioner is seeking the oust of Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Vice Chairperson Juliana Cherera and 3 other commissioners who rejected the August 9th presidential election. Honorable Osoro, are they unfit to hold office?
I wouldn't say that yes or no, because number one, I'm withheld from discussing much because I happen to sit in the committee that they'll be appearing, before. I sit in the jailer committee in the National Assembly. And from the leadership position as the majority whip, I may be very careful with my choice of words because I do not want somebody to make a presumption that is a government petition. But what I would say is that every Kenyan has a right to petition Parliament for whatever matter that is of public interest. I am aware that there is a petition that was presented before the National Assembly, but it will follow the due process. There are grounds for removal of any commissioner from office, and that is enshrined, I think, in Article 251 of the Article 251 of the Constitution of Kenya, and of course, one of which being gross misconduct. It is part of the grounds that I've seen in the petition because I've gone through the petition. But the process is not as easy as ABC. Like, they'll appear before the National Assembly because the petition must be, addressed by the National Assembly. That is the law. That is the Constitution. We'll hear the petitioner today. And tomorrow we'll hear their defense, the 4 commissioners' defense. We'll, of course, later retreat for our report writing. The report will be tabled before the National Assembly. It may be in support of the petition or against the petition with recommendations. If it's in support of their removal, again, the commissioners will have a chance, to rescind it again in the floor of the House. Of course, we'll table it before the plenary. The members of Parliament may adapt it as it is or reject it. But if they adapt it and it proposes removal, then again, there's another further step. I think, again, in that very Article 251. Now, it goes again to the President. The recommendation are tabled before given to the President. The President will set up a tribunal. Now, this tribunal is not just any other tribunal. The tribunal will be chaired by a person who is a serving judge of a superior court or a person who fits within that, the qualification of a superior court, with other 2 members, more than 2 members who qualify to be the High Court judges. So it is not something that is, there's a whole lot process that will offer these commissioners a hearing space as provided for under Article 50. They'll be heard, they have a right to be heard, they have a right to be presented by advocates. So it is not something that you can say that, they are not fit, they are unfit. Somebody feels they're unfit. The committee may feel otherwise. If the committee supports what somebody feels, the plenary may feel otherwise. The tribunal may feel otherwise. And the president may also feel otherwise. So it's a process.
A long process.
But from where I sit, I think they need to be given a right to be heard. And I think that is what we...
I see how careful you are with that mostly because of your sitting jailer, so we will understand that. But Sifuna, should they be put to their defense simply for holding a contrary opinion from their chairperson?
Trevor, I am also very interested to find out, the grounds that have been set out in that petition for the removal of these 4 commissioners. If it is just that they took a contrary position to the chairman, actually protesting something that was even reinforced by the decision of the Supreme Court, that in fact the matter of of dealing with the result of the presidential election is something that is collegiate, although the announcement is the only one that, is clear that is the role of the chairperson of the commission. So if that is the only ground, then really I don't see how it meets the threshold, because even as my brother has referred to you under Article 251, the grounds for removal, the threshold is set very high. It's not just misconduct, it has to be gross misconduct. And there have been various decisions in the past on what constitutes gross misconduct. I just don't think that people taking a contrary opinion on a process was going to be something that constitute gross misconduct. And in fact, even the Supreme Court itself found no fault. They just said that we need to look at the issues in the commission in terms of their corporate governance. They did not lay any blame on the commissioners, because even when you're working together, I don't think that we are bound to agree on everything, on the process, or even the work that we're doing together. So I'll be very interested. And just like my brother here yesterday, the leader of our coalition also, out of reverence for this particular process, because everybody has a right to bring the petition. Whether the petition is grounded or not is fine. And Osoro should not pretend that they don't know the origin of this petition. Osoro, we are grown-ups, man. At the very minimum, be honest with your viewers. Even if you don't want to be honest with your viewers, be honest with us. You know the genesis of it, because people were a bit upset on your side that these commissioners took this particular position. I can assure you Osoro knows those petitioners. And even when they come today, there are people who probably even yesterday they were together somewhere, eating, drinking. So let's listen to the evidence. Baba said yesterday, out of respect for the process and in Parliament, let's listen to the evidence. Let's interrogate the evidence, because they will be able, the petitioners will come, they'll present their grounds, we want to see the evidence. If indeed it is just on the basis of the position that these commissioners took, then it is nothing more than a witch hunt, and we can see through it. Okay. And I am sure that members of Parliament, I don't expect, because I know that Osoro's team is the majority in that committee, I don't expect objectivity, because I know they are executing a vendetta against these 4 commissioners. And because they have the numbers to force anything through, I don't expect objective. I'll be very surprised if Osoro takes an objective view of this particular matter, because these are matters that they have already publicly spoken about. Yeah. They need to oust these 4.
Okay, before I go to Governor Matangi, I'll come to Osoro, because you need to recuse yourself, either confirm.
He won't. He knows it's the truth.
You know these people, and he will not be objective.
No. Truth of the matter is, I'll be very honest, because like Honorable Sifuna said, it's important for us to be very honest. My honest opinion is, number one, I only saw the petition through the table office, and I picked it as any other member of the National Assembly. And my other responsibility is limited to sitting as a member of JLAC and listen keenly to what the petitioner says. Although I'll be making, I'll be displaying a bit of some interest, a little bit, because of on my personal grounds, based on my personal grounds, which is within my rights as a member of the JLI committee, which I wouldn't want to display or to say them here. But on objectivity, like Honorable Sifuna said, trust me, that is a quasi-judicial kind of a unit and a body, and we will be impartial arbiters. Okay. Listen, and take note, retreat, and then really, if he claims that we are the majority, which is of course true, then the minority will have their say and majority will have their way. But we do not want to be so presumptive that the outcome should be this and this and this. And even as he says that, their own members have also, I think they've directly sponsored an oath against Chebukati. Even as he goes, they're pushing for his early retire. I think, is it called?
His term is over. He needs to leave.
They're saying he should go for terminal leave and stuff like that, alongside the other commissioner who was kind of in support of this whole thing. So the people playing politics are these gentlemen, from this coalition. For us, we received humble petitioners. We'll listen to them.
Let me bring it up, Governor. Governor, the election is done. The election has been declared. Should we even be having this conversation?
Okay, anyway. Well, okay, Trevor. You know, it's good to listen to these two gentlemen sometimes. Well, it is also humbleness. Anyway, Trevor, you know, we may say that we've forgotten, because I find even my friend Senator Sifuna is also playing it safe here. But well, as much as we may have forgotten, and we don't want to delve into this, you know, between the two members of parliament. But remember, Trevor, that we have a public document now.
Yeah.
That was rendered as a judgment and an opinion by the Supreme Court. This decision by the Supreme Court, you know, which was a determination of what the outcome of the elections was, had various and lots of grounds based on the petition itself to the Supreme Court that centered around the actions of the four during the just concluded general elections. And that opinion of the Supreme Court is public. We all listened to it. We know what that opinion said of that revered court about the conduct of the four in as far as their professional engagement is with the IEBC, and indeed some of the potential harm that would have caused to not only the country, the process of our conducting our general elections, but even the standing of the IEBC itself.
Yeah.
And I think in as much as we want to be civil, and I believe that it is good to let due process always take course all the time, and especially when it comes to the careers of servants in public, in agencies, the fair hand is always the best way to go, because once you conclude that process, it is essential for that person to feel that they were treated and given the opportunity to defend themselves without the mark and mire of politics. But this was too public, if you ask me. It was at such a crucial time of this country's decision-making process that you cannot presume or ignore that it did happen, and it had potential implications. So what do I think about the petition? I believe these members of parliament should boldly listen to what the petitioners have to say.
Yeah.
They did not have maybe an opportunity to be heard or bring in about their thoughts during the hearing process in the petition in the Supreme Court hearing. And it is upon them to make a decision, because they can't run away from a decision. And especially in my friend's docket there in the National Assembly,
yeah,
they will have to address themselves to it. But if you look at the reporting there in the Daily Nation on page 4, you find that even as Senator Sifuna, from his side of the coalition, also takes that position of uninformed and humble, you will find that there is a line there that says that in a separate but related move, that the Azimio coalition has also, using the nominated MP John Mbandi, also sponsored a motion seeking the formation of another select committee to investigate the conduct of the elections in Chebukati. That would give you the impression that they have read that this is likely to take the angle of bringing out the politics that was in the conduct of the four, and then blend it with another introduction of politics, so that probably then just becomes a political show.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to our agencies, and especially the IEBC, within another 5 years, Trevor, it's likely that Sifuna will be back to the elections, seeking either to be the senator or governor of some place.
Yeah.
And so will I. and all of us who are in political leadership. One of the institutions we must defend vehemently, solidly, is the IEBC. Because it doesn't matter from which side of the coalition you are in, come that crucial time. You must have an independent, a truly independent IEBC. And that is the only way this country can avoid the chaos that we saw in 2007 and onwards all the way from 1992. And so on that question, we must be non-partisan. We must be sideless in agreeing that any person who finds their way to be called a commissioner in that commission must live true to their oath. And I, as Wamatangi, should never find entry into that agency to in any way influence the way either of those individuals, given that cardinal and serene responsibility to determine how Kenyans have made their decision during our elections. I think that we must say very loudly, in my view, and not shy away. Because if it was somebody who was trying to interfere this, leaning towards my coalition, UDA, Sifuna and Azimio would have been out on the streets saying no. And this is what Kenyans, I believe, must all say very loudly, that when we have made our decision in the ballot box and said that these are the right people to lead us, that should not be interfered by anyone at all, not even by those who've given that responsibility to be our commissioners.
All right.
Can I just correct one thing? Because the motion by Mbadi, it has nothing to do with politics, Governor. You know that, and you have alluded to it at some point, because we have had various recommendations made out of the Supreme Court cases from 2013 to 2017 and even to 2022. The court has expressed itself about some of the things that Parliament needs to do in order to tighten up our electoral space. The problem we have, Trevor, is that these reforms, electoral reforms, usually are undertaken very close to the election. And in fact, this is why this time round, we as a minority side have decided that this conversation needs to begin early. We look at all the recommendations that have been put forward by the various court decisions on how we can better improve the legislative framework around elections in this country so that we have fewer disputes. We want to make the process better. This is not something to do with removal of Chebukati, as my brother has claimed here, because Chebukati's term is over. And even the requirement for people to proceed on terminal leave, it's not for us to say that is that is the usual practice, that towards the end of your term you take leave so that you're able to allow the process of your replacement to continue. So that has nothing to do with I believe Chebukati will be judged by history. We don't have to say anything about him, but the fact that we need certain reforms, and especially guided by the proposals and recommendations that have been made by the Supreme Court, is not something that can be politicized. Yeah.
Now that you're still on the floor, Sifuna, there's been a bit of allegations that there's turmoil in the Azimio coalition. Wycliffe Ambetsa Oparanya was just quoted the other day saying that he's looking to cut ranks with the Azimio team. Are you concerned that there seems to be some split in the Azimio coalition?
I don't think there's a split, and even on the question of Oparanya, you as a media practitioner should always insist when you see those reports, especially in print media, to be shown a video of Oparanya saying those things. Because some of the reportage can be erroneous, because they pursue, reporters pursue their own interests. For instance, there are two meetings that have been alluded to in this newspaper, one on page 5 and another one on page 25 of the Daily Nation. So it is MPs from coffee zones step up war on cartels. There are 32 members of parliament who went to meet Cabinet Secretary Simon Chelugui. Look at the way that story has been reported, and the one of Western leaders, which tells you that sometimes these newspapers also pursue political ends. It is possible, Trevor, for people to have differences of opinion. And one of the things that is frustrating many people in Azimio is that we have not, as a coalition, been granted opportunity to speak freely about and express ourselves about how we conducted ourselves in the election, who did what, who did not do what. We have not yet come to that particular point in time. And I've said this publicly, and I can repeat it here. I feel like there is a hesitation within the ranks of that coalition for people to have that discussion. I don't think that it is bad for people to have a conversation about where we lost the ball, you know, whether it was electoral theft, whether it was incompetence, or whether it was bad strategy, bad messaging. Whatever that conversation is, my position as Secretary General of ODM is that we should not shy away from difficult conversations. There are people in the coalition, you know, ODM is different and the coalition is different. ODM has structures, by the way, and those structures allow members to be able to ventilate, to talk about anything. And that is why you see that the party is able to refreshen itself from time to time. But when it comes to the coalition, you know, because we are dealing with people from different political backgrounds, some of our partners don't want us to have this conversation because they know the silent majority in ODM, by the way, we have a lot of things to say. We have a lot of things to say. We keep getting assured that there will be opportunity for us to speak. When you see people now starting to speak at funerals, at press conferences, it's because we have been denied that opportunity to speak internally. We have a lot of things to say. I would love nothing more than to be locked in a room with Jeremiah Kioni, the SG of Jubilee, and just have a conversation about the election. I would love it, you know.
Where did you drop the ball in your view?
I've just told you we have not had that conversation never. Because
you're
at the end of the day, if we are allowed to have that conversation within the coalition, then we can now come here and say, yes, we are in agreement that this and this did not happen, or this did not work, or this was not executed the way that it was planned, and so on and so forth. So I personally have repeatedly asked the leadership of the coalition. You know, the leadership of the coalition is different from the leadership of ODM. And I am not even a member of the organs of the coalition. I am just an SG of a constituent party. In ODM, people are eager to speak about this election. We just want that opportunity internally to have that conversation so that I don't have to be answering something that Jeremiah Kioni has said there in the media and so on and so forth.
Yeah, there were statements that the political debt, quote unquote, was settled.
Yeah, so those are the things that upset us because, you know, I have not ceded my responsibility as SG of ODM, and I have reminded people that under the constitution of ODM, it is the responsibility of every member to combat propaganda that is detrimental to the interest of a party. And the word is combat. The word is combat. So when I see things in the media that are detrimental to the interest of ODM, I have a responsibility as SG of the party to combat that propaganda. We would like that explanation, like that claim that the debt in Mount Kenya has been paid. I can assure you many people in ODM want our brothers in Jubilee to explain to us how that debt has been paid. We are not clear on that, you know. So the coalition leadership needs to convene. Let us talk. In fact, it would be nice to do this before Christmas so that we all go home with a clean heart. You know, I cannot be celebrating the birth of Jesus with heaviness in my heart. I want to put this muzigo down and enjoy Christmas.
You know, politicians join hands for a purpose. It's more or less like hunters coming together for